Hello, this is Clive Cable with Influence Intelligence Module 3, the Persuasion Equation. Now, you're going to want to take notes here. You may want a notepad and a pen or pencil because you're going to be answering a number of questions as we go through this. And I always find that if you want to learn something really well, then you watch and listen at the same time. I do this a lot. So this is the persuasion equation, and we're going to start with the structure of sales copy. Some travellers came to a village carrying nothing more than an empty cooking pot. Upon their arrival, the villagers are unwilling to share any of their food stores with the hungry travellers. Then the travellers go to a stream and fill the pot with water and drop a large stone in it and place it over a fire. One of the villagers becomes curious and asks what they're doing. The travellers answered that they're making stone soup, which tastes wonderful and which they would be delighted to share with the villager, although it still needs a bit of garnish, which they are missing, to improve the flavour. The villager, who anticipates enjoying a share of the soup, does not mind parting with a few carrots, so these are added to the soup. Another villager walks by inquiring about the pot, and the travellers again mention their stone soup, which has not yet reached its full potential. The villager hands them a little bit of seasoning. More and more, the villagers walk by, each adding another ingredient. Finally, the stone, being inedible, is removed from the pot, and the delicious and nourishing pot of soup is enjoyed by travellers and villagers alike. Although the travellers have thus tricked the villagers into sharing their food with them, they have successfully transformed it into a tasty meal which they share with the donors. Now, when I first heard this story, I felt it reminded me of the way good copy is written, or should I say, assembled. You start out with a stone, which is your writing talent, and you put that talent into a pot, which is your project, and you place it over a fire, meaning you're starting to get enthusiastic about the outcome. But you now have to add ingredients, so you do your research, and as you've seen from Barry's research remedies in modules 1 and 2, you find out how your prospect thinks, and then you assemble your sales copy with these ingredients: their problem. You must clearly understand my situation and what caused it. Their emotions. You must know what I'm feeling right now. Their pain. The symptoms that are causing me unbearable pain every day of my life in many ways and in many areas. Your solution. You must have found the answer that fits my problem precisely and explain it clearly. You must be able to tell me in a way I clearly understand why you are the best. Make it compelling. You have to convince me beyond any shadow of a doubt why I should act, and then urge them to take action. I must want to get your solution more than you want to sell it to me. Then you spice it up with your backstory, and we're going to go into this in a bit, and you add a sprinkling of proof or the science behind. Now, if you want clarification on this, go to the membership area where I do the science behind the Completely Confidence recording, and you get the idea of what I'm doing here. Okay. Then you need a handful of exciting, enticing benefits. Of course, all of these improve the flavour of your sales copy, but you still need that special sauce, the seasoning, and even the spice. They come in the form of testimonials, solid guarantees, painting a vivid picture of what their future will look like, and overcome any last-minute objections. And now you have a tasty meal you can share with the world. The pattern interrupt. Today, more than ever, people are either bored or skeptical, and you need to entertain people with your copy. And because fiction now outsells non-fiction by 500 to 1, it's time we copywriters studied fiction and use some of its best ideas. Recently I watched Bird Box, a movie starring Sandra Bullock. It's a thriller, and every scene keeps me glued to the screen. The movie starts out with a great pattern interrupt. She's down on one knee, looking up to two young children and telling them they're about to embark on a treacherous journey and they have to wear their blindfold at all times, otherwise they will die. Then you see them get into a boat blindfolded and headed down a wide river. Next, you're placed in the middle of a scene 5 years earlier with a dialogue between our hero, Sandra Bullock, and her sister. The dialogue has only one purpose: to reveal her backstory, while at the same time getting you to like her and care about what happens to her as the hero. Should you use this in your sales copy? 100% yes. If you don't, no one will want to read a word you write. Your past can create your future. If you're one of those people who listen to Tony Robbins saying your past doesn't equal your future, forget that for now. When you create a great backstory, your shortcut, the getting to know and like you and trust you part of any new relationship. This is where you build a bridge between defend and bond. And you may remember the video, I had it in there. The 4 circles here represent the 4 core drives all of us have. Your main problem when you're facing writing the sales copy is to get past their defenses so you can begin to bond with them. The pattern interrupt is the best way I know how to do that. You create a bridge that immediately allows you to cross from defend to bond. Think of it this way. You pleasantly surprise your prospect into becoming compliant just long enough to allow you to establish a bond with them. And as long as you're ethical and you have their best interests at heart, they won't object. Now, how to instantly bond with your reader. Use story, metaphor, simile, or any one of a number of rhetoric devices. These special play on words are what people enjoy reading or listening to. One of my favorites is he's got more money than God's ex-wife. From now on, you're going to create a folder with a separate file labeled story, metaphor, simile, rhetoric. Then you have a notepad handy, so whenever you read or hear any of these, you jot them down. Now, there are a number of sources you can get them from. Mine is friends and family, or books I read and listen to, especially on Audible, TV shows, especially series fiction. This helps to keep your writing fresh and as entertaining as fiction. Plus, you'll have fun putting them into your copy. I've studied over the 40 of the best writers that ever lived, and they all use these wordsmithing tricks of the trade to make their sales copy sizzle. By the way, sales copy sizzle is a rhetorical device known as alliteration, because you've got the S and the S. Collect stories like this one. Many years there was a robber, rapist and murderer who dies and ends up going to some afterlife place. He gets to the afterlife and he's not sure if he's in heaven or hell. He walks in there and there's an angel there to greet him. While you're here, you can have anything you want. Just snap your fingers and it will appear. You can have a fancy car, beautiful women, nice clothes, a yacht, anything at all. But we only have one rule here. You're not allowed to work. So the man says, well, that's fine with me, not a problem. And for the next few months, he asks for everything he wants, women, clothes, cars, whatever it is. And this goes on for a number of years. Then he went back to the angel and says, hey, I'm bored. Can I do something to repay you? Maybe sweep up a little bit or do the dishes or something? Ah, no, sir. That's not in the rules. You're not allowed to do anything. The man says okay and gets on with his life, asking for more things to enjoy. After a couple more years, he gets to the point where he just cannot take it anymore. Once again, he goes back to the angel and says, I can't stand this anymore. I need to get out of here. Please let me go and just send me to that other place. And the angel looks at him and says, hey, guess what? This is the other place. The major distinction between heaven and hell is that you can't work for something you want. Now, at this point, you want to connect this story to whatever you want your reader to accept as true. Okay, so you grab these stories that are in here, if you want to, and take them and put them in your emails or on your landing pages or about you page or anything, it doesn't matter. But you've got to connect that story with what you want them to believe. That's the vitally important part. So when you choose your story, think about how it will connect. Like I did with the Stone Soup story at the beginning of Module 3. I knew that copywriting is assembled. You don't just sit and write it. And when I remembered the Stone story that I'd heard years ago, I thought, yeah, that's kind of like that. It's a metaphor that's going to show you the way I think about, and the way a lot of other copywriters think about writing copy. So these types of stories are in fact pattern interrupts. They hijack your reader's consciousness and take them away from any thoughts of defending themselves, and at the same time builds a bridge between you and them. Just about every fascinating story told well creates a strong bond between the storyteller and the listener. Now, I'm sure you'll know this is true. As a child, your parents told you stories at bedtime. Stories shut down your inner critic or your critical factor and bypass any conscious effort to defend yourself, which is exactly what we want. This is what we're looking for, straight away in our copy. This is usually happening below your awareness, and as Kenrick Cleveland once told me, there is no defense against this in real time. And if you don't know who Kenrick Cleveland is, I think he's the most persuasive person on the planet right now. So a pig farmer is working in his yard one day when a man appears and asks, what do you give your pigs to eat? Well, trash and leftovers from the farm, mostly, replies the farmer. Well, this is a disgrace. I'm from the Animal Welfare Society, and I hereby fine you $1,000. It's outrageous giving your animals trash. A couple months later, two different men come into the farm and ask the farmer the same question. The farmer hesitates and then replies, well, generally speaking, it's a high-protein, low-cholesterol diet. A special lunch would start with lobster and smoked salmon, followed by fillet steak and a lightly tossed green salad, with a low-fat raspberry yogurt cake as dessert. The two men became very angry. How dare you? This is criminal. People are starving all over the world, and you're feeding such food to pigs. We represent a charity called Global Food Redistribution, and we're fining you $10,000. A month or two later, a woman shows up at the farm with a clipboard and asks the farmer, what do you feed your pigs? The farmer gives a long look and replies, I give them $1 each, and they buy what they want. Two things. How well did you do? Were you able to stop and think what you were reading and detach yourself emotionally? Didn't think so. Neither could I when I first read it. And I went on the hunt for you to find you another good story. Second thing is this. How could you use that story in your copy to make a point? And what point could you make? Would it be that you don't want to listen to conflicting advice when you're quite capable of making up your own mind? Or would it be that only through experiencing life firsthand can you gain wisdom? There are, of course, many possible interpretations that you can use depending on what it is you want your reader to believe without question. Creativity on tap. This brings us to creativity in copy. One school of thought is that you swipe ideas from other successful promotions, and the other is use originality and creativity together with insight. The Netflix series, The Queen's Gambit, answers these within the realms of chess. Now, it's been said, as I'm recording this, that The Queen's Gambit is Netflix's best ever series. I urge you to watch it. So, some world champions use their memory to recall hundreds of games, if not thousands, so they know what to play in any given situation. Others, like Bobby Fischer and Judith Polgar, are more intuitive. And by the way, that's the composite character that the woman was made up of in The Queen's Gambit. So, in case you don't have 7 hours to invest watching it, I'll give you my biased answer. Go with creativity if you want to make money over the long run. There are several ways you can become more creative. In my early years of copywriting, I use Roger Von Eck's The Creative Whack Pack, which I've still got. Also, I use meditation, and meditation is not what you think. It's another great creativity tool, and I can spend quite a lot of time thinking. So what I would do is I'd find music with isochronic tones, not binaural beats. Okay, this is important because it will take you deeper into these levels of mind. Okay, then find a quiet place and shut off all distractions for 20 to 30 minutes. And while you're meditating, actively seek the answers that you're looking for. Now, wait at least 6 minutes. I know it's hard to tell the time, but give yourself time to really get into this relaxation, and then your mind will begin to expand. Then you can start asking questions. Some days I will spend 2 hours meditating. Most of the time I'll find what I'm looking for. And if you don't find or don't like the idea of meditating, fine, then go for long walks. Don't take any electronic gizmos with you, just pen and paper. So one time when I wanted to write a headline and a lead, I was living down in Bournemouth, and I decided I was going to walk from Bournemouth Pier to Boscombe Pier, and it's about 1.25 miles. And I said to myself, I'm going to come up with the headline and the lead before I get to Boscombe Pier. Well, I got it around about halfway. I wrote some of it out, just the main notes, and when I got back, I was able to write it out in full and then leave it for a while and go back and edit it. That's an important thing with writing, by the way. You write down your ideas and then you don't try to edit as you write. What you're doing, you're going to come back to it an hour later or the next day is even better, especially if your mind's had time to digest what you've written and think about it. So I want you to spend 2 to 3 hours each day thinking about what you want to write. Now, if you're a mornings person, oh, by the way, I hate morning people and mornings and people, then do your thinking later in the day and allow your sleeping brain to conjure up answers. And if you're an evenings person like me, then spend your mornings thinking about what you want to write. Know this, your best time to be creative is the exact opposite of whether you're a morning person or an evening person. It's worth noting that. Okay. Now, brain training. I cannot recommend this highly enough. I heard about the whole brain power from the great copywriter David Deutsch. Many years ago, he told me about this book, and I went and got it and started using some of the bizarre brain training ideas in there, and they've helped me tremendously. The concept is train hard, fight easy. Train your brain every day, and your writing will become easier and easier. As I say, I've been doing brain training for well over 15 years, and I know this to be one of the best kept secrets of all great copywriters. If you can, get the app Elevate and begin to improve the way your mind operates. It has exercises for reading, writing, mathematics, listening, and speaking, and every one of them will help you to become a better communicator. Okay, so now I want you to notice how much time we're focusing on anything other than copywriting. That's because it's what you do while you're preparing to write that makes all the difference to your writing. Okay, I want you to remember this. It's not the will to win that counts. It's the will to prepare to win that counts. Emperor Hirohito of Japan was making a state visit to Thailand. Every day his itinerary was painstakingly planned to the last minute. It was a punishing and precise schedule. One particular Friday, the emperor and his entourage were booking a visit to a small Buddhist temple for exactly 10.5 minutes to talk informally to some of the monks. The emperor and his party entered the temple precisely on time, but the monks were nowhere to be seen. The aide responsible for the emperor's schedule was mortified. In panic, he looked to find the monks. He made some lame excuse for their absence, but the emperor was not perturbed. He stood silently in the centre of the room, totally at peace with himself. Precisely 10.5 minutes after they had entered, the emperor signalled he was time to move on. On his way out of the temple, Hirohito turned towards his aide and said, "Thank you. I enjoyed our appointment very much. Please schedule another one for me tomorrow." So make good use of your spare time. Meditate more. Reconnect with the inner and outer world. Practice the art of slowing down time. Now we're going to go into your backstory, and you will need to be taking notes and writing here. Okay, so in the persuasion equation model, you were introduced to the concept of getting past people's natural defenses by creating a bridge between defend and bond. The next step is to create a bond of trust, liking, and a feeling that they already know you, and you do that with your backstory. Stories speed up rapport. A story can drastically speed up the process of learning who you are and thus trusting you. Instead of having to discover who you are over a long period of time, a story can stimulate the reader or your prospect into seeing what you're like really quickly. Stories mesmerize people. They fit into the indirect, permissive model of persuasion and not the old-fashioned direct authoritarian model. According to the New York Times and CBS News poll, 63% of people believe that in dealing with most people you can't be too careful. 37% believe that most people will try to take advantage of you if they had a chance. It also showed that people taking the poll believe that of the people that they know, 85% would try to be fair. That is, of the people they know, remember that? And they use a story to let people know who you are. See, because 85% would try to be fair. So that's what you're using the story for. Okay, your trustworthiness will almost triple. So creating your story, or how you became a hero. Now, Joseph Campbell detailed the hero's journey in his work with myths. He has a book called The Hero with 1,000 Faces. Very complicated book, but it did spark a revolution, especially in filmmaking and blockbuster books. So this journey that he talks about, the hero's journey, you're going to find it in most of the major stories. Even that Queen's Gambit Netflix series I was talking about, she follows the hero's journey perfectly. So the purpose of this is to create a compelling story. Story have at their core some key aspects. They reduce resistance, which we talked about earlier, that bridge crossing between defend and bond. And they move those hearing it past the critical thinking filters during a story. They lead people to their own conclusion, but it's a conclusion that the story helped to shape. Now, what you can learn by reading or watching fiction. Every great work of fiction has a major character or heroine that is the focal point of the story. There's also a villain. They say the stronger the villain, the better the hero has to be, and the better the story. But the heroine and the villain both have to have likable character traits. However, the hero has a lot more, and they are structured in such a way that we, the reader or viewer, can't help ourselves liking and caring about him or her. And the opposite is true of the villain. We can't help ourselves not liking him or her. And so we have conflict, and without which there wouldn't be much of a story worth following. So you must decide who your villain is, also the common enemy. So who is it going to be? Okay, it could be your ex-partner in business or in life. It could be the government, pharmaceutical companies, your bank, your own self-sabotaging behavior, whatever. But you must come up with a common enemy. This is going to make your story so much more powerful. And your reader will want to know how you overcame this common enemy. So spend some time reflecting on your history to see if you can find a villain both you and your reader have in common. And next, we'll look at the types of traits that will make people want to get to know, like, and trust you. And note, you're doing this, by the way, so you can do away without the need of selling yourself or your product or service. The time you spend thinking about this will pay you back immensely. So character traits. There are 3 types of heroes and their corresponding emotions. There is the hero, the average Joe, and the underdog. So you're going to be choosing one of these. So on your piece of paper you've got next to you, hopefully, I want you to write down which one of these 3 you resonate with most. The hero is superior to the reader and produces admiration. Although they are not perfect, they're confident about their skills and act without hesitation. So think James Bond, if you like. They have no ambivalence, no self-doubts. We don't identify them, but we fantasize about being them. They give us a taste of who we can really be. The average Joe is equal to the reader. This results in sympathy because we recognize ourselves in them and thus identify with them, their desires and their needs. So you could have Sandra Bullock in that film I mentioned earlier on as the average Joe. These characters struggle to rise above their doubts, limitations and obstacles. Then there's the underdog. This is the film Rocky. The character is inferior to the reader and they are the unlikely hero. The odds are against them. They're outmatched by antagonistic forces and overwhelmed with them. So we're inclined to protect, help or console them as the story progresses. The underdog is an appealing protagonist because it makes us feel free emotions. Compassion for the lack of self-esteem or resources to be successful, including physical, emotional, social or mental handicaps. Admiration for the determination to try and overcome their obstacles and take control of their lives, and suspense for the implausibility that they'll succeed. The odds are being stacked up against them, and so will this person pull it off, and if so, how? So please pause this video now and choose one of those 3, and you're going to stay with that character because all your traits are going to come out from this particular one, either hero, average Joe or the underdog. Okay, just pause the recording and choose and come back when you're ready. Okay, I hope you've done that. So now we're going to look at traits. Once you establish your character type, you're going to give him or her traits. This is yourself. Obviously, you want more than one trait because it's impossible to feel for somebody who's one-dimensional. Real people have many layers, emotional, psychological and intellectual. You'll want a number of attributes, preferably a mixture of positive, neutral and negative traits. The character is all good or all bad would not be credible or interesting. So the idea is you're trying to be private in public and you're admitting some of your flaws because we know nobody is perfect. No one. So let's take a look at your values. You must have individual point of views, beliefs, attitudes or values. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Flaws. The idea is to make you likable. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. Human beings aren't perfect. And people will bond with characters who have flaws. Flaws can include negative traits, fears, lack of objectivity, resentment, psychological wounds, or other emotional troubles. And they add colour and dimension to characters by making them more human. You want your reader to wonder how the character will triumph despite his or her flaws. These struggles produce some of the most compelling emotional moments in stories. So then you've got to say, okay, what is it you want? Once you've just decided those. Okay, what are your desires? What's your goal? Desire is the spine of your story. And any obstacle to that desire is conflict. And you have to be unreasonable about getting the result that you want. Okay, so This all in turn produces emotion. And really with your story, you're in the emotional delivery business. All stories are about people wanting or needing something. Without a goal, there's not much of a story. So please write out what it is that you want. Is it your own business, autonomy from other people, to create a cause, etc.? Please pause now, and what is it you want in your story? Okay, the history of you and how you became who you are now. What were you striving for? What was it you had a yearning for? Please pause now and complete this part before coming back. Okay, I'm hoping you've done that. So now, why do you want it? What's your motivation? All behavior is motivated. Motivation is the mental force that makes us act, the why of every behavior. To answer these questions, write your answers below. Okay, so why do you want this? Then we're going to do this 5 times. Okay, so pause each time I ask that question. Why is it that you want that desire that you just wrote down? Okay, and then why do you want that? And pause and write that answer down. And why do you want that? Pause and write that answer down. And why do you want that? Pause and write that answer down. And why do you want that? So we should really now be getting right down to the core emotional reason why you want that desire. That's very important for your story. Okay. So what happens if you fail? You've got to have something you're going to gain or something you're going to lose. Are you going to lose face? Are you going to lose everything? Are you going to look bad in front of, say, your partner or your parents or whatever it is? There must be high stakes there. Okay, and you're going to be using this later on as we go through this, the rest of this module. So all this is very valuable for you. So pause again and write down the answer to that question, then come back when you're ready. Now, how do you change as the story progresses? Okay, the last piece of the puzzle is the character's arc. It's how she changes emotionally from beginning to end. A change can be physical, behavioral, mental, or emotional. Because change is difficult and stressful, it adds conflict. It also gives the story a sense of significance and importance that was worth reading or watching. Now, if you remember the video that I talked about how I changed and how I was I couldn't stand the idea of cold calling anymore, and so I decided that I was going to sit down and write a letter, an introductory letter, and bit by bit I changed and became much more confident in what I did as a copywriter. And so that's what you want to do. Okay, you want to show that change over the time of your story. Nobody likes instant change. It's not believable. Okay, so who did you become as you went through your journey to get what you want? Because that who you became is what your reader or prospect wants to become. You know, there is a book out there called What Do You Want Your Customers to Become? And you want to be answering that here as what you became. They want to be like you in some way, whether you were the hero, the average Joe, or the underdog. They're going to relate to you here, and that's the important thing. Okay, so what did you become as the end result? For me, I became the copywriting craftsman for internet entrepreneurs. Okay, that was my end result. So, part 2 now. If you want to take a break, by all means do. You can pause here and come back. Go and get yourself a cup of coffee, tea, or something. Go for a walk and come back, because this is quite intense. Okay, so let's carry on. Connecting with character. Now, you do not need a mini story for all of these points. Okay, 5 is enough for you. If you were asking me to do this, or for yourself, because you're going to be weaving them in to your hero's journey story. So here we go then with connecting with characters. We care about victims, the characters we feel sorry for. For example, undeserved mistreatment, injustice, or contempt. Show others unjustly mistreating you. This could be people humiliating you, or laughing at you, or causing you to be embarrassed. So I'd like you to show that now. I want you to pause in a minute just after this explanation. So you're going to do a mini story. 1 or 2 lines is enough. Okay, a paragraph at most. But just if you can, if you've got a story of undeserved mistreatment, and most of us have, write that, pause there and write that down, and then come back. Now, injustice caused by being trapped, or unjustified prejudice, or being falsely accused of something. If that's ever happened to you, great. Put a story there, mini story there. If it hasn't, go straight on to the next one. Okay, pause if you need to. Now, the emotion is even more poignant when a defenseless character is abused, exploited, or made to suffer. Did that happen to you in some way? Maybe in your childhood, or maybe in your first job, or anything like that. If that is the case, then I would like you to write your mini story here. Remember, you only need 5 of these, okay? So, is there undeserved misfortune, sad circumstances, bad luck? Okay, put your mini story down there, pause if you need to. Did you have a death of a loved one, losing something or someone important, or experiencing an accident? They're all good examples, your mini story here. So again, you do not need a mini story for all of the points below. 5 is enough for me and should be enough for you. Once you get your 5, if you don't want to continue, you don't have to. Obviously extra points if you do, because you've got more colour to add into your story if you can weave all those points in. Or you may want to weave them in other places on your website or free reports or whatever or emails that you're giving out. Okay, so it's not wasted if you continue, but you don't have to. Okay, so any physical, mental, or financial hardships, any mini stories there, pause if you need to. Any deformity, mentally challenged, trapped by a particular situation, for example, fear of heights, burdened by an addiction or terrible disease, extreme poverty or financial hardship. Again, pause if you need to. Haunted by the past, wounded by repressing pain, pause if you need to. Any moment of weakness and vulnerability, these include a character displaying pain, grief, self-doubt, insecurities and fears. This will be to do with the inner journey. We go to the outer journey, what people can observe about you when we come to the hero's journey story, or you've got the inner journey, what's going on inside you, how are you feeling? Okay, is there that pain, grief, self-doubt? It's important that you use that, because you can use that and copy and paste this into your inner hero's journey. Okay, betrayal and deception. If you've got anything like that, please pause and write that down. Not believe when telling the truth. Now this is a good one, because this is it shows you a lot of people experience this particular problem or trait or history or something. But that's really great. If you've got something like that, please put it there and pause if you need to. Abandonment, if you have that, again, pause. Exclusion or rejection, pause if you need to. Loneliness and neglect, it could be in a marriage, or it could be when you were brought up, or in work, or anything like that. So pause if you need to. Making mistakes and regretting them, well, who hasn't done that? So you should be able to put something in there. Again, you don't need a mini story for all of them. Okay, you don't. Suffering injury, pause if you need to. Jeopardy, again, pause. Helping others, especially the less fortunate, pause if you need to. Relating to children or children liking you, again, this is a good one, because if you like children, people will automatically think you're a great person. And liking animals, or animals liking you. Now, it's great to use something like a dog, for example, liking you. It's not so good to use a cat, because cats have been used as props for evil geniuses. You know, see the early James Bond films, for example. Then pause if you need to, again. Having a change of heart or forgiving somebody, again, that's really good, very powerful. Pause if you need to with that one. Risking life for the sake of others. And by the way, if you look at any series fiction, something like The Last Kingdom, Uhtred has all of these character traits, all of them. You will see that by the time you finish watching series 1, if you haven't already watched it. And that just shows you that Bernard Cornwell knows about all these, and he would have done a little tick box to get you to like that character. Okay, everybody says they like that character, Uhtred. Okay, so, and again, he's fighting for a just cause. So if you've done that in the past, please do that now and pause and fill that out. Being ethical, moral, dependable, loyal and responsible. Pause if you need to. Loving other people. Again, that's a good one, really good one. Pause if you need to. Being important to others, people looking up to you, people needing you, people relying on you. Okay, so once again, pause if you need to. Showing humanity in private moments. Again, pause if you need to. And acting in any nurturing way. Again, this is a great character trait. And pause if you need to. So what I would do now is I would take another break. You're going to need it. And go and do something creative, or play some music, or anything, go and take a shower if you need to, go for a walk, a run, any form of exercise, yoga, doesn't matter. Go and take a break, at least half an hour, so your mind is refreshed. If you want to meditate, do that, okay? And then when you're ready, we're going to go to part 3. This is where things really get amped up and where you're going to strengthen this bond, and this is going to set everything up for the rest of your sales copy, and you can use this in loads of different places, loads of different aspects, okay?